Okay, so now let me explain what's going to happen. Basically the same thing. I have 8 questions here, and 8 questions will take us to 8:50. Now, in between the candidates answering the question, we're going to ask for no applause. We're going to start in the exact opposite that we did last time. Clay, you were first.
Yes.
You're going to be last.
Oh.
Holly, you were last. You're going to be first.
Okay.
So it's going to go Holly, Tom, Hal, and Clay.
Okay.
Well, 2 rounds of questions, 8 questions total. Okay, you ready, Holly?
Yes.
Mendocino County depends on brook trails to supply some of the state requirements for low-cost housing. But brook trails cannot grow without an increase in water storage capacity, and that can't happen until a second access is built. As 3rd District Supervisor, how would you help facilitate the building of a brook trail second access? Of the 3 second access alignments being studied, which one would you prefer and why?
As I mentioned, the focus has really shifted away from this, and I'm committed to shifting the focus back to brook trails to make sure that we can get these things done. I don't want to say, I think we're going to have to get really creative on how we fund it. That's really the main stumbling block to moving forward with a good system up there, is how are we going to fund a second access, say. So I don't support the bond issuance to do that, because I really worry about imposing greater debt on the residents of brook trails. In terms of the routes, I like the one that goes down to Primrose, and I like the one that goes down to Highway 20, and I like the one that goes down the existing road down to the Apache Mill site. I think those just sort of seem like no-brainers. I do not support putting a second access right next to Sherwood, just a little bit. I don't like that option, because it doesn't seem like it's really addressing the problem, frankly. The development of water resources up in brook trails is also very important, and that is going to have to wait till another timed question.
Okay, Tom. Mendocino County depends on brook trails to supply some of those state requirements for low-cost housing. But brook trails cannot grow without an increase in water storage capacity, and that can't happen until a second access is built. As 3rd District Supervisor, how would you help facilitate the building of the brook trail second access, and of the 3 second access alignments being studied, which one would you prefer and why?
Of the 3, I have absolutely no preference. There's no funding for the second access for a number of years. They say it'll be 5. They're being kind. It'll probably be 10 or more years. Rather than focus on that, what I'd like to focus on is something we can do something about, which is the fire concern in brook trails. It's the most dangerous area around. There's a plan, and there are emergency ingress and egresses that are supposed to be in the plan, and I've talked today to the fire chiefs and law enforcement, and there's a lot of confusion among them. They don't see it, but in talking to all 4, it's very obvious that there is need for more communication and a look at all those roads. And I am pledging to go walk or drive those roads with the owner's permission and with whatever law enforcement, CERT, Highway Patrol, and Brook Trails, Willits chiefs that will go to see if they're graded and open and ready. There's a lot of confusion out there. The residents don't know what to do, and this is important. We have to start working on it right now.
Okay, Hal. Mendocino County depends on brook trails to supply some of the state requirements for low-cost housing, but brook trails cannot grow without an increase in water storage capacity, and that can't happen until a second access is built. As 3rd District Supervisor, how would you help facilitate the building of the brook trails second access? And of the 3 second access alignments being studied, which would you prefer and why?
A lot of facets to that question, and there's a false assumption in there that brook trails can't grow and increase its water capacity without the second access road. Those 2 things are not related. However, brook trails currently has enough capacity to add somewhere between 100, maybe 150, maybe even 200 more houses. The capacity is there. It also has a plan underway and has begun the process to raise Lake Ada Rose and create an earthquake-proof structure in the process. So that is suspended at the moment while they're working on the fire tax and some other things, but they're ready to go. They want to do that because the intertie with Willits plus that would give enough time that Lake Morris could then be brought up to the same area, same capacity, same quality, and then you would have enough water for the entire area. As far as which road alignment I would prefer, I have walked all of those roads. And as many of you know, the Elsie proposal that I came up with some years ago used the Apache Road. Well, now they've moved that northern interchange far south to where it is just opposite Up Creek. And I think we should go down Up Creek. And that means, and the reason for that is that you have to have collector roads that will collect the traffic, and the natural collector is where the second entrance is, where the two stone deal is. So a direct connection there is where you ought to go.
Okay, Clay.
Yes.
Mendocino County depends on brook trails to supply some of the state requirements for low-cost housing. But brook trails cannot grow without an increase in water storage capacity, and that can't happen until a second access is built. As 3rd District Supervisor, how would you help facilitate the building of the brook trails second access? And of the 3 second access alignments being studied, which would you prefer and why?
Well, it all really does come down to funding. It's an expensive road. I know for my preference as far as the best access out of there, it would have to be the route that goes from Brook Trails out to Highway 20, because it's perhaps the cheapest way to do that. And it gives an additional exit that's somewhere other than Sherwood Road coming out onto Main Street. However, it's not beneath me to give of my own land that I happen to have and allow a road to go through there. I happen to own a piece of property. It's near the Maze Way area. It's 16 acres. I would probably lose about 3 acres because the road goes right through the middle of it. But I would be okay even giving that to the county just for their own public road use. And perhaps that'll save a little bit of money there. But the funding of it is a critical thing. And I know it just comes down to hard work and cutting costs where we can.
Okay, the next starts with Tom Woodhouse. Given the severity of the current drought, what would you do as a county supervisor to encourage law enforcement to identify and prosecute those who illegally divert water from rivers and streams?
We talked about this morning. What I would do to encourage us to do that is to Google the existing grows along the streams and walk it with Fish and Game, check the ones that are permitted and leave them alone and mark the other ones, and then do something about the water that's being taken out. My office is on a salmon stream, and I really value the little fish coming up there. It inspires me, but they're not going to be doing that if we let people take all the water out of the streams. It's going to be very early this year, and so there's not a lot of time to waste. By August, it'll be too late. So somebody may be calling law enforcement and making some demands this summer real soon.
Okay.
Someone.
Hal, you're up here. Given the severity of the current drought, what would you do as county supervisor to encourage law enforcement to identify and prosecute those who are illegally diverting water from rivers and streams?
Well, I would certainly encourage law enforcement to identify, because they are the ones that go out and identify. They find the bad guys and they can see where the diversions are. However, there's not a real good mechanism for anything, whatever comes after that. And the prosecution is up to the district attorney. So let's just understand the DA is elected and he serves the people. The sheriff is elected and he serves the people, and the supervisors have the budgetary authority. So I would certainly support funding enough of a study. There was a game plan created in the sheriff's office where they knew what they were doing and how to report and capture the evidence and have a proper chain of evidence that would enable a successful prosecution. And I would certainly lobby the district attorney. I almost said a bad word here, to vigorously prosecute water theft. I think water theft is one of the things that is part of the coming hot buttons. And just as Tom said, you just can't allow it any longer. Rivers are supposed to get bigger as they progress, but we're seeing now that the Eel River, for instance, is getting smaller as it goes closer to the ocean. What's happening there, folks?
Clay, you're up. Given the severity of the current drought, what would you do as county supervisor to encourage law enforcement to identify and prosecute those who illegally divert water from rivers and streams?
Well, you know, I don't think they really need a whole lot of encouragement. They understand the problem well. I think it's up to the people themselves to identify any sort of problem that they see, you know, as far as illegal diversions go. I'm quite sure we're not talking about someone who's trying to grow a field of corn here. This is marijuana, and there's people that are taking water illegally for that purpose. Marijuana, it's still illegal under federal law, and it's something I'm very aware of. I know each of us have all taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States as part of our running for office. I think that it is incumbent upon us to go after those that are certainly diverting water in that way. It's detrimental to our river, and it'll come to haunt us later on.
Holly, given the severity of the current drought, what would you do as county supervisor to encourage law enforcement to identify and prosecute those who illegally divert water from rivers and streams?
It's not just drought time when we need to be concerned with this. Some people think that once it rains, we no longer have to deal with the protection of our watersheds, but massive illegal trespass grows are drying up our watersheds. Often people notice it first because they notice a diesel sheen on their water supply of downstream neighbors. There's been an increasing negative cumulative impact to nitrogen infiltration into our streams and rivers as well. It's creating the algae blooms that people see in the summer that are dangerous to dogs, and I mean it's a bit of a nightmare. I absolutely support prosecution of illegal water diversion. For that reason, the cumulative impact is significant. This is also the reason why I support legalization. I think that it's coming down the pipe. I don't think that our county has yet prepared properly for that, but legalization will allow proper regulation. The wineries are heavily regulated. Every drop of water they take is heavily regulated. So this could be put into a similar area. There's a lot that we could do to prepare ourselves economically and environmentally for legalization.
Okay, and I want to inform our listeners and our audience that if anybody does know of an illegal water diversion or water theft, the Sheriff's Office has an anonymous webpage, MendocinoSheriff.com, where there's a icon to click on to report illegal water diversion or water theft, and we take that very seriously. So Hal, Mendo Transit Authority, MTA, is the option to opt out of our cars. How can you support this mass transit option we have, and have you ever taken the bus to Ukiah?
I have not taken the bus to Ukiah, but I have sat on the MTA board, and I helped them get a raise at a point where they had been stuck with a flat compensation package for a number of years. I notice also that MTA has got a plan and is moving towards a solar-powered facility and even solar-powered buses. So these folks are not dragging their feet. They're kind of on the cutting edge of things. The kind of problems that you run into is how do you run a bus up to Covelo that is effective? If you're in Covelo, how long does it take you to get to a doctor in Ukiah? And when do you come back? You can't just run a bus once an hour for 3 people in a day. So they've tried all kinds of volunteer things and so on and so forth. It's easy to run a bus in a populated area, but we're in a rural area, and the spread out area is the problem. So I think some form, I'm really out on a limb here, but something that is closer to ride sharing and co-op sharing and bulletin boards is the glue that is going to kind of help the whole thing go together. I don't think government can provide that service just out of thin air. Well, you can't do it well.
Thank you. Clay.
Yes.
MTA, Mendocino Transit Authority, is the option to opt out of our cars. How can you support this mass transit option we have? And have you ever taken the bus to Ukiah?
No, I have never actually been on the MTA. I'm very familiar with it. I know some of the drivers that do this on a regular basis. I talk to them and they tell me some very interesting stories as things unfold. But I'm very much in agreement with Hal. Those outlying areas, it's just not cost effective for the distance and the time that they have to go, particularly out to Covelo, or even out to from Leggett down into Ukiah. I can see where buses work very well for certainly more inner city things, or perhaps even from Willits to Ukiah, or even Fort Bragg. But you start getting out farther away from population centers, it's just not a practical deal for the MTA. But I can see where there could be something set up whereby there would be a local authority that would have something that could connect to the MTA to facilitate things and make it work that much better. And I think that could be really doable.
Of course I've ridden the bus to Ukiah.
Okay.
I know that question. I served on the MTA board a number of years ago, and it's a challenging one. More urban density makes it easier to run an effective bus system. And I actually, when I was in college, rode the bus to my college classes until I got a motorcycle. But, MTA is run I think it runs in the red most of the time. It's basically a government subsidy so that people can get around. And certainly the rural areas are a challenge, and that's why we have to be really creative in terms of how to make that work. And they've been doing wonderful things as far as making a solar facility. They received a multi-million-dollar grant to make an entirely solar facility down there in Ukiah. So I welcome all of you guys to stop by and see it. It really is something. But in terms of the ongoing provision of services, folks in Covelo have a hard time. Folks in Laytonville have a hard time. We can't use the traditional model because it's not going to be able to keep going into the future. So we got to mix it up.
All right, Tom Woodhouse. MTA is the option to opt out of cars. How can you support the mass transit option we have? And have you ever taken a bus to Ukiah?
No, I have not. I would make my first campaign promise that if I'm elected, I will. And I will invite law enforcement to go along so we can talk about important issues on the way.
I have ridden a bus.
We'll be trapped in a slower form of transportation and have a lot of time together. I would like to support it more, and I want to support it with a ride-share idea to Covelo, too, because I'll be going there. I really like Covelo and Laytonville. They're great people. They're like what we used to be 20 years ago because they don't have city and law enforcement, and they have to work with each other. So they fight well, and then they work well together. That's all I have. I would also like to say that really my dream would be to take rail down to Ukiah. I know that seems impossible, but if we start thinking about it now, it's really the future. It's something that would work for all of us, and it'd work for jobs, and it's something we should start working on.
Okay, new question. Clay.
Okay.
Would you restore the county employees to full-time with full pay? And if not, why not?
This is something I very much would like to do. This is an important factor to me. I know that certainly the people, even at the sheriff's department, have had cutbacks over a number of years, as has the social services, and I think that they can be brought back to where they were. I don't know if we can get it all the way back for, you know, back wages and stuff. I think that might be a little bit difficult. But again, it comes back to being sucked dry by our healthcare costs. They're squeezing us dry, and I'd like to put an end to that and use that money to get their pay back to where it ought to be.
Holly, would you restore the county employees to full-time with full pay, and if not, why not?
We certainly need to move in that direction. As I mentioned before, the morale at the county is incredibly low. Each individual is doing 3 jobs, and they're just demoralized. They feel like the board is not listening to them. They feel like they're not getting the response from the Board of Supervisors, many of whom they help elect. I am not going to promise full restoration because I don't think that is a reasonable promise for me to make. What I am going to do, and what I'm going to use my experience as negotiating with bargaining units here at the City of Willits, I'm going to use that experience to make sure that we can maintain some sort of balance, get back to a balance. The current offer on the table that the employees have put back is not full restoration. They understand that we're in a precarious financial situation. They would just like 3% restored. It's not a raise, it's a restoration of pay that they had given up in the past. The county has not said that they cannot afford that. The county can afford that, but they're saying that they're just going to choose not to. So I'm going to change that dynamic at the county level. We need to demonstrate and walk our talk and show our employees that we care about them.
Thank you. So, Tom, would you restore the county employees to full-time with full pay, and if not, why not?
I would like to give the county employees as much as possible. At this time in the budget, I couldn't possibly guarantee that. What I would guarantee them, and what's more important, is that they deserve the respect and the attention of the supervisors and all of us as well for the job they're doing. That is how I work with organizations and make the improvements I've done around Willits. It's from the ground up, dealing with the employees, listening to their ideas and empowering them, finding out what's really going on, and then advocating and making changes. It works all the time. It takes a lot of extra effort. And what you have tonight is a choice of deciding, we all say wonderful things. Who's going to follow through on what they're doing? Who's committed to making this happen? I am. It's not just words and campaign promises. We all have good intentions, but I have the personal people skills to make it happen and the determination. It's really the only reason I'm running. I'm not running to build up myself. I'm running to build up those employees and give them what they deserve, which is my total attention and respect.
Okay. Hal, would you restore the county employees to full-time with full pay, and if not, why not?
Well, as has been mentioned up here earlier, you work with what you have first. And the folks that are there, naturally they should be restored to full-time service and as much pay restoration as possible. But just as the rest, my other, what are we, candidates? Friends, yes. Anyway, you know, those of us who are hopeful here, we will be one of 5 making those decisions, and we don't exist in a vacuum. The budgetary and legal implications are very complex in these things. So I could not promise that I would do that sort of a thing. But it's most important that those who are there first, before you add any new jobs, you would want to restore those that are there to full compensation. But I'll tell you that we've cut too far in some places. It should be reasonable that you go in and you can get a plan check and be processed in an application through planning and building within 30 to 60 days. It should be reasonable. You should expect that. And there are a number of other places where you should expect a service and get it delivered. And I really think that we have cut the fat and the bone and the muscle. And we're going to have to put some of that back before we can deliver the services that are necessary. So I'm going to support it in that direction.
Okay, this is a very specific question dealing with the city of Willits. And it starts with Holly. What will you do as a supervisor to help Willits to gain a Railroad Avenue to Bechtel Road corridor to relieve congestion in Willits and on our Willits Valley Country Road System?
Well, this is easy. I've already done a ton of work to get that done, so you can accomplish that by voting me your next supervisor, June 3rd. This is a really important project for the city of Willits. The entire city council supports it, and where we're at right now is really in the resources. You know, with the current drought, we've been just working on that intensely, and we really need to commit a certain amount of money to the Railroad Avenue project because it's going to help. We've got a broken grid. We need that to be able to help our in-town circulation traffic. As a supervisor, I'm going to advocate on MCOG, if I get to serve on MCOG, the Mendocino Council of Governments. We need to make sure that we get funding for that project. That body has really been focused on the Willits bypass, and so it's been like pulling teeth. I've had a number of items up before the city council to shift just some of those local transportation dollars to this local transportation solution that I've championed, and it's been a challenge, and so I will continue to make sure that that gets funded and accomplished.
Tom, what will you do as a supervisor to help Willits to gain a Railroad Avenue to Bechtel Road corridor to relieve congestion in Willits and on our Willits Valley County Road System?
If you're looking for a pattern here, I think there is one. It's the same as the second access to Brook Trails. There's no funding for the Bechtel corridor, and I don't think it's going to happen. I know the whole council is behind it, but the money is not there. There's so many issues that I don't believe it's going to happen. I must have been paying attention to my wife all these years. I always have all these ideas of what I want to do, and really you have to focus on priorities and pick the top one or two and leave the other ones alone, because there isn't an endless amount of money. I'm not going to say we're doing all this stuff when we cannot afford it. There is no money. There is no money. We have a flat revenue stream in this county. So talking about all these things that cost millions of dollars, it's not going to happen. It's come down to our energy, working hard. We can accomplish any little project we try and build momentum, but we don't have endless money to do things we can't afford. Did I pay attention, Carlin, or what?
Okay, Hal, what will you do as a supervisor to help Willits to gain a Railroad Avenue Bechtel Road corridor to relieve congestion in Willits and on our Willits Valley County Road System?
I also have superior domestic advice on my finances. But as far as Railroad Avenue, that's a north-south circulation feature for the internal traffic in Willits. It's not a through traffic corridor. And it begs the question, if you have such a north-south corridor, what happens at the north end? It's pretty easy to see how you get on it on the south end, and then it simply dumps out somewhere around Commercial Street, or, God help us, the Post Office Street. And then that traffic has to fight its way back into the north-south central corridor. I think it's a bad idea. If I wanted to relieve congestion in the town of Willits, I would support a second access from Brook Trails down to the northern interchange, because that would take some 3,700 residents that may not actually be heading to Willits off of the city streets.
Okay, Clay, what will you do as a supervisor to help Willits to gain a Railroad Avenue Bechtel Road corridor to relieve congestion in Willits and our Willits Valley County Road System?
Yeah, I realize that the railroad corridor is sort of like a missing piece that would otherwise allow traffic to maneuver there. But it also, as has been spoken of, there's no money there, particularly at this time, to do that. And the only way to get that money is to promote and have greater employment and jobs and some amount of growth in Willits in order to achieve that. There's going to have to be just simply more business going on to generate the funds necessary to do it. And until that commitment to supplying the jobs and business necessary, it's going to be very hard to come up with the money for it.
Okay, now next question, and we start with Mr. Woodhouse. How would you prevent the commercial development of the interchange areas of the Willits bypass?
I think that would be a much more interesting question and thing to discuss in the community rather than whether or not there's going to be a bypass. This is, people have assured us, people in government assure us. I'm very concerned because in most towns it always has development there, and I'm worried about what that means for our town. This would be a very worthy thing to put our minds to and have a serious discussion and make sure we're ahead of it for a change. We're always chasing things from behind because we're so divided. That's what I hope to do, is bring people together, listen to the diverse opinions, but come up with some simple way forward. And it's not that hard to do, but it takes a little bit of patience. I have a lot of patience, and I think it's going to take every bit of that and more dealing with all the people in this district. But I look forward to that challenge. I'm glad I have the patience to start with, and I expect you all to tell me when I'm not doing a good job, but we have to do better than we're doing now. I'm certainly willing to be humble, listen to all your advice, take it to the board, and do the best I can as 1 out of 5 people. But it's going to take all of us. I need a partnership with all of you, not just a vote. It's a long-term commitment, and that's what I'm asking for.
Hal, how will you prevent the commercial development of the interchange areas of the Willits bypass?
Well, if that is the goal, there are 2 ways to do that. First of all, a road that runs along the border of a rural town like this is often used as a definition of how far the city is going to grow. The city would grow up to that road, and then it would be rural ag land beyond that. You can see that easily on the eastern edge of Willits. But at the moment, the authority for those land use decisions, as all land use decisions that are not in the cities, lies with the Board of Supervisors. So the supervisors have the land use authority at the moment. If the city of Willits wanted to have control of that, they would want to annex that property and bring it into the city. Then the city would be growing, and the city would have the obligation to provide water, roads, police, and so on and so forth out to those interchanges. So you have to decide, do you want it or do you not want it? Now, the example that we saw in Cloverdale last night is they went out and they annexed right up to their interchanges, and then they simply didn't allow growth there. They made sure that their growth happened in the heart of their town. So that's a way to handle that. I would support either of those options. As a supervisor, I would promise not to allow that kind of growth because it'd be very harmful to this town. But I won't be there forever, and neither will any of the folks here. I've seen a lot of growth in 50 years, and you can bet there will be more.
Clay, how will you prevent the commercial development of the interchange areas of the Willits bypass?
Yeah, certainly the commercial development on the interchanges at the north and south end, it's certainly nothing that I really appreciate. It tends not to be the character of the town. I think if it did go in, and I'm sure it will go in at some point, that it would have to be designed very, very carefully to fit within the nature of the town itself. I know that things like, particularly petrol stations for just people getting fuel is kind of a necessary thing. Otherwise, it defeats the bypass to a certain extent, because now the people actually they really do have to come into town to get the fuel. And it would tend to defeat that a little bit. But on the other side, it's nice that they would come into town because there's a greater likelihood that they would perhaps avail themselves of the services that we have. So there's some considerations there that are a little difficult to nail down. But I would like to see it perhaps dealt with very, very carefully as time unfolds.
Holly, how will you prevent the commercial development at the interchange areas of the Willits bypass?
I will maintain the existing zoning. There's some parts that are already in place. At the northern end, it is required to be kept in wetlands surrounding that area. That is not going to change. But it's very important to maintain the zoning as ag land on the southern interchange, because that is how we're going to protect the downtown business owners that have invested so heavily in our community. if we let sprawl go out at those interchanges, it's going to suck basically the lifeblood, of our local economy. So I will stand up for that. Another thing that we need to do is really make sure that we have good signage. This was great because it got brought up last night. I'll put it up like this. We need to make sure that we have good signage coming in and out of our town so that people know that they can just pull off, frequent some of our wonderful restaurants, pubs, gas stations, and then easily get back on. You don't have to backtrack to make that happen, and we need to make sure that that's well known. And you know what? I'm not just going to throw up my hands and say that there's no money. We need to have a vision in our community, and we can find money. We can develop industry, manufacturing, there's a lot of things that we can do, and I'm not going to limit myself by the current economic situation. We can grow.
Okay. One of your supporters must have written that question if you brought that sign, I'll tell you that.
I've been thinking about these things for some time.
Okay. This starts with Hal. Will you take back the Board of Supervisors' ability to hire and fire department heads?
I would not.
Clay?
This is an issue upon which there's some information that's lacking here, and I would very much want to look into that. And whoever would post or put forth such a question, there's some information here that I'm unaware of, and I would want to look into that because that's a very serious matter.
Holly?
Going from a CEO model like we have now back to a CAO model is certainly something that I'm willing to discuss. The current Board of Supervisors has really abdicated a lot of their control and responsibility into the model that they have, and it allows them to put up a buffer between the employee and the organization and the employees. It allows them to have the CEO be the bad woman in this case, and it puts a space that I think has had a real negative impact as far as the administration of our county's duties. So I would be very interested in exploring that further.
Tom?
I agree with that statement. The space between the board and the employees is not the model that used to be. Now the employees cannot reach the Board of Supervisors and speak to them individually and have a relationship and get them the information. I don't think that's the right model to work with. The employees at least deserve to face the people who are making those decisions.
Okay, and our last question from the audience tonight before your closing. And to me, this is, I think, the most important question tonight. Very simple. We're going to start with Clay. It says, vision, our county in 3, 5, and 10 years.
Well, in 3 years, I certainly would like to see where there's some more manufacturing going on. I think that's very doable. It would be something that I think would provide a stable amount of employment for moving things forward. In 5 years, I can see where perhaps infrastructure for water would be more complete at that time, and that would be able to further things along. And in 10 years, I do trust that everybody will be able to enjoy the health plan that I've designed. If there's any better way of doing this, I would be the first to acquiesce what I've done and go for what I see is better. But it is something that's very near and dear to me because, quite frankly, I need it too. Thank you.
Holly, vision, our county in 3, 5, and 10 years.
I want you all to imagine with me, if you will, looking back 3 years from now and seeing a thriving local economy. I want you to think back and realize that we've got some really decent water policy countywide that is allowing us to be leaders in forms of conservation. I want you to be looking back and seeing that there's more streams, more water in our streams and waterways. I want to be looking back and seeing that we're all thriving and working well as a community to go forward. We're going to be remembering when I got on the board and how I used my relationships with the existing supervisors so that we really can get things done, not just talk about, not just do, wish we could, but actually move things forward. We'll be able to form a majority and take action to make Mendocino County a better place.
Tom, vision, our county in 3, 5, and 10 years.
I'm very frugal, but I'm also a very optimistic person. The people that I've been talking to all around the district are coming awake again, I think, after our downturn, and I think we're set for a very positive, productive future. If we work together and jump on board with this, it's really going to be a great time, I think. The economy goes up and down, and we've been through a large down, and we're going to go up. I want to enjoy that by picking priorities to work on with people and enjoying the bounty and the beauty. I think this is the good old days. Even these challenging times we're privileged to live through. I think it deepened our gratitude about what we have and how precious and short life is. If we concentrate on working with each other and sharing what we have more than we need, and there's plenty to give. I really want to give that to young people and inspire them and just watch the beauty that comes.
Okay, so now we're to the closing remarks.
Do I get it?
Oh, I'm sorry, Hal, I apologize. Hal,
Oh, you did yours.
I didn't have the vision.
The old guy wants the last word.
Vision, our county in 3, 5, and 10 years.
Well, in 3 years, we're going to have a water policy countywide. The bypass is going to be complete. Howard Hospital is going to be up and running. A real economic engine and a benefit to this particular community. I'm the chairman of Visit Mendocino County, and I promote tourism every day. Tourism supports 5,000 jobs countywide today, and it will be more by then. In 3 years, the Harris Quarry is going to be online, and our roads are going to be improved, and our employees are going to be being paid better. In 5 years, we're going to have broadband. It takes longer to get that done than just flicking your finger. We may have a biomass plant. That takes a little longer also. And in 10 years, you're going to see forestry really beginning to flex its muscle. And all of the preceding things are all still going to be happening in those 10 years. The Harris Quarry is going to be there, our roads are going to be better, and our employees are going to be paid better, and our water policy is going to be really working for us.
Okay, now we're down to our closing statement. And Holly, you will go first on this. I want to thank our sponsors very, very much for hosting a great event. I want to thank the candidates for being positive and upbeat. We've seen negative campaigning, and it's not good. We as citizens deserve positive and upbeat campaigning, and that's what we've seen tonight, and I appreciate it. So thank you very, very much. If you wrote a question that was not asked tonight, I'm sorry, it was not asked tonight. But you will have the opportunity, because each candidate has been asked to stick around for at least 30 minutes tonight to meet and greet and answer your questions, and I would encourage you to do so. This is going to be a tough election, so ask the hard questions. And I'm going to just say this, that as sheriff, I've heard what's said tonight, and whoever wins, I'm going to hold people's feet to the fire. I think that's important, because Lord knows it happens to me. So, Holly.
Do not miss this opportunity to elect an energetic, qualified, young female supervisor to this district. This is such an important moment right now in this election, and what an incredible turnout. I can't believe it. It's so encouraging to see how much you all care about this. This is our chance to show that we're done with the good old boys in the status quo. We can do things in a different way. We can re-energize young voters, young residents in our county. It's an incredible opportunity, and do not pass up this chance to vote for me, Holly Madrigal, for your 3rd District Supervisor. If you want more information, of course I'll stay here tonight, but also go to voteholly.com. And thank you all for voting.
You can applaud for each that. All right, Tom Woodhouse.
It's great you have a choice here. It's good to have healthy competition. You've had the opportunity to see what some of the others can do serving for you. If that has changed your life and made you happy, then your choice is clear. I'm offering something different. It is a fresh approach. I'm an independent person, and I really want to be a public servant and represent you. I have the ability to get things done, and I am motivated and excited about the opportunity. I want to take a minute to thank all the people who have supported me. It's made it incredible for me. So many people have come up, and I just want to thank every one of you for your kindness and your positive energy and your optimism. It's been the most rewarding thing I've experienced in a long time, and I value each and every one of you. And I would invite all of you to please join us. We're having a fun campaign, and we have great ideas, and we're going to put them into action. Thank you.
Hal Wagenet.
Thank you. I also want to support my supporters.
Thanks.
They're supporting me. They're supporting you. This is a joyous occasion, I think. We do have a good bunch here to choose from. In 90 seconds, you just try to define some of these issues in 90 seconds. Please go visit my website. I've spent a lot of hours detailing out a number of these features and quite a few more. That is the way to really find things out. And I'm not really selling myself. I do have a record as an individual, as a board member on nonprofits, and as an elected official. But I just invite you to compare my vision, as you've heard it tonight, and the way it is detailed on my website. I want to thank Rosie for making that possible, because I certainly don't understand the mysteries of the web. But I'm an experienced candidate. I know how to listen to you. I know how to get things done. And I'll tell you what, if any of these others are elected, they'll have me as a resource also. I'm happy to help them out. We need all the help we can get. You should not throw away your experience like we do so often with, oh, do I see gray-haired people out here? Yeah. You know, very often the old folks and their knowledge are set aside when they should be mined. And let us mine each other here. So anyway, thank you very much. I've enjoyed the campaign so far, and I look forward to June 3. Thank you.
And Clay Romero.
Okay. Well, I trust that all of you have found some reason to vote for me in this upcoming election, though I can well understand that some of you may disagree with some of the things I stand for. I'm sure you've found that I'm not a candidate that blows with the wind of public pressure. I stand firm on established standards of honor, respect, common sense, and just good old-fashioned fair play. I do have some printed information back there that I would like you to review and to avail yourself of. And if you could take a look at my website, it's at clayromero.com. I think you'll enjoy it because it's fun. But also to meet your approval. I am, after all, here to serve you in any way I can. It's at the crux of the position, and I mean it. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, good night. Thank you for being here. Lots of literature and Canada's. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tom, for moderating.
You're welcome.
Yay.